This happened last year. Big lawsuit with NAR. A lawyer put together a class action lawsuit and sued the National Association of Realtors. And then there was a whole bunch of different qualification things that people had to go through to qualify for this lawsuit. And what it essentially said was that commission was fixed in the real estate industry. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sellers responsible for their commission and buyers responsible for their commission, as opposed to having it all in one thing. So before the lawsuit, before the settlement, what would happen is a real estate agent would have a client, and they would do a search on the MLS, and there was a commission offering in the multiple listing service. So a buyer's agent would look at the listing, and there would be a field in there that says the seller is offering 1.5%, 2%, 2.5%, 3%, 3.5%, 4%, right? So one of those numbers. There is no such thing, by the way, as a standard commission. Everything in real estate is 100% negotiable. And what happened is most real estate agents that represent the buyer's agent didn't negotiate their own commission. They just accepted whatever the seller was paying, right? So the seller would agree to, again, 4.5%, 5%, 5.5%, 6%, 6.5%, 7% commission. And then that listing agent would agree to split that commission at a specific rate. Normally the listing agent did take a little bit more because there's marketing dollars and there's more expenses around having a listing than there is a buyer. So it could have been maybe 60% stayed with the listing agent, 40% stayed with the buyer. Sometimes it was 50-50. It's kind of all over the place, right? Here's how it works now. If you list your home for sale and you hire a listing agent, which you 100% should hire a listing agent, you are only going to agree to the commission amount that the listing agent and the listing broker earn for selling that home. Technically, it's between the listing brokerage and the client, but the commission goes to the brokerage. They take their split, and then the rest goes to the agent, right? So that, again, that could be anywhere from 2, 2.5, 3, whatever. The number is completely negotiable. Could be a flat fee. Could be conditional, meaning like you could say like, hey, if you get me more than $2 million for the home, the commission rate is this. If you get me less than $2 million for the home, the commission rate is that. Everything is completely negotiable as long as you don't go against fair housing. Like you can't say like, well, if you bring me a rich person, then I'll pay you more commission. Like we can't do that. I don't know who would do that, but you need to understand that's the case, right? As a buyer agent, what's happening right now, or what's required by law, is that just like you need to sign an agreement to list your home for sale in the multiple listing service, you now need to sign an agreement, and you should have done this the entire time. I think real estate agents got lazy with this. In order to work with a buyer agent, you need to sign a buyer broker agreement with them that outlines exactly what they're going to do, how long that contract is for, and how much that agent is going to get paid. Now, here's the interesting thing. Let's say for simple math, you agree to 3% with commission between you and the buyer agent. The buyer agent can still negotiate that commission in the deal. So they can say, hey, here's this offer. It's $1.7 million. And we also want the seller to pay 3% commission, to be credited as close. So the buyer does not have to pay that. And technically, I know this sounds weird math-wise. The buyer's paying it no matter what, because it's just a line item on the on the closing statement. Yes, it's coming out of the proceeds of the sale, but the price is kind of reflective over that. So they did split it. It is on the buyer thing right now, but it's still a line item on the closing statement. It still comes out of the proceeds of the sale, and that's how it works. So let's fast forward. And let's say that you sign a buyer broker with your agent. It's at 3%. You write an offer, and in the offer, it says, hey, here's an offer at $1.7 million. Here's our closing date, and we want you guys to pay the 3% commission. And the seller comes back and they say, no, we're not going to pay 3%. We're only going to pay 2%. Now there's a 1% difference. The agent has the choice. You can negotiate this with your agent. You either need to pay that additional 1% as a closing cost at close of escrow, which is part of the agreement, right? You're agreeing to pay all the commission, but we're negotiating as much, if not all of that, as we can in the negotiation of the sale. But there are times when pricing, it's just not there. And maybe the seller, can't or doesn't want to cover that commission. The difference can be paid as a closing cost, part of your down payment at closing. Another option would be the agent could choose to just waive that commission. They can say, okay, I'm good with the 2. We don't need to pay the other 1. But you can negotiate that with your agent in that moment. What cannot happen is this scenario. You agree with your buyer or with your agent to pay him or her 3% commission. And then the agent finds out that the seller would have paid 4% commission. The agent cannot take that additional 1%. right? If the agreement is at 3%, if it's at 2%, if it's at 2.5%, it doesn't matter. That is the absolute most the real estate agent can make on this deal. This part I really like because it gives transparency on the process to the client. They know exactly what's getting paid more. Now, if the seller was willing to offer 4 and somehow that was uncovered, the seller can take that additional point and credit it towards buyer closing costs. That's totally okay. That doesn't happen that much, but if that's uncovered and the seller's okay with it, you've got that option. But just remember, the agreement that you signed is either it's going to be at that amount or potentially lower, right? You should like just sign the agreement based on the agent you're working with, what they charge, if you believe that they have your best interests in line, and there's good synergy and camaraderie there, for lack of a better term, then that agreement is what the price is. But understand that the seller is responsible for their commission. The buyer is responsible for their commission. In most other parts of the world, believe it or not, there is a listing agent and it is buyer beware. And if the buyer wants to have an agent represent them in the sale, that's typically handled as a direct fee paid at closing. There's no commingling of commission at closing of escrow. United States is one of the only countries that does it that way. And so you could make the argument like, well, did anything really change? And yes, because the responsibility of the commission is on the buyer, but in most cases, it is getting negotiated as part of the sale. I know it's weird. I know it's kind of convoluted. I know it's confusing. If you have any questions, just, I'll put my email in the comments below. Just email me. I'm totally happy to walk you through it. But just know when you work with a buyer's agent, which is still an amazing idea, even if you don't use us, that's totally cool. I would never try to buy a home on your own. There's just too much disclosure and there's too much stuff. And at the end, I think everybody realizes like, okay, I'm glad I did that because I can sleep at night. I don't have to worry about anything that I did wrong or something that I miss. But if you do have questions, comment below or send me an email. I'm totally happy to help you there on it. Let me interrupt this episode really quick and let you know that if you're considering purchasing a home in the next 1, 2, 3, 9, 12 months, we have a cheater guide that will let you know every single thing that you need to know to buy your next home in Carlsbad, California. Even if the home is not on the market right now, we have options for you. It's totally free. You can download everything, including a sample purchase contract, so you can be completely prepared to move forward. So go to steveolsongroup.com/buy or click the link in the description below. All right, let's get back to the episode.